After removing the drum and the shoes, we have the spindle hub where the bearings ride on and what actually holds the drum and the tire or the wheel. We want to take off this cap to get to the bearings. The grease cap holds in the grease. There's a cotter pin. Remove the cotter pin and remove the nut. The cotter pin helps hold the nut in so it won't spin as the tire spins or the wheel spins, and holds in the bearings. You see the seal, the grease seal, and the inner bearing. Now we have to remove this back cover. There's 2 bolts on the bottom and 1 bolt on the top where the pivot for the shoes and also holds in the wheel cylinder. We're removing these lower bolts that also hold the steering arm that goes right behind. So with those bolts off, there's a nut behind there. With those bolts off, the steering arm is gone. Now you could kind of turn it freely. You could turn the whole spindle freely, and that gave me more access to put in a breaker bar to remove that big pin up on the top that holds the wheel cylinder. So after a lot of trying, I got the that pin off that holds, or it's a bolt that holds the wheel cylinder off. Now I'm able to detach the back cover. That was the last thing that was holding the cover in, and the hose is still on there. That was a kind of a bit of a gasket that was on that cover. I tried to remove the hard line from the hose, but I couldn't. It was stuck in there pretty bad, and those hard lines are pretty bad. I'm gonna have to remove them anyways, replace them with new good ones, and so I'm just gonna break it off of the hard line. I tried and I couldn't. Saved you guys seeing how much I had to try and unsuccessfully. So we'll figure out the hydraulics later at another video. But so I cleaned off spindle really well and surrounding areas. Now I'm still thinking of getting maybe drop spindles. So I'm not gonna mess around with the suspension too much. Maybe fix a couple of the bushings that are worn out and kind of see how bad or how good the suspension is. But I may go in and change a lot of stuff later on. So well, my goal right now is to get it running and moving around, and then hopefully I could drive it around a little, even though it may be a pretty bad ride. So there's the steering arm, and there needs to be a spacer there. The spacer is as thick as the bracket so that the steering arm sits parallel, because on the other side the steering arm is connecting the bracket and actually holding it onto the spindle. I had a little bit of trouble getting both bolts in there. Those holes on the bracket were a little bit out of round, so I had to actually go in with a round file and open up the hole a little bit just so it could get the steering arm bolt through and hold down the bracket, but it wasn't too bad. So I'm showing you a shot now of the driver's side. It's kind of the same method you use on the other side. That's the steering arm, and the bracket right here in front. It sits just behind the spindle, and the steering arm goes directly onto the bracket, and then the front side has that spacer, and that's where we're gonna install the caliper on. This is a wheel seal, and it rides right there, and it keeps in the grease from coming out, and pack in the grease into the bearings. Now I'm going to do the inside first, the inside bearing, and I put it into the, and I cut out a lot of the video of me packing in the grease bearings. There's a lot of good videos on how to do that on online that I've watched, and I remember learning it in auto shop. I'm pressing in the wheel seal into the inside. So you put first the bearings, then the seal inside on the rotor. Now these rotors have built-in hub that ride on that hold the bearings and will ride on the spindle. So with the seal and the bearing installed, put on the rotor. And you have to pack in the grease to the outer bearing. Now I have these slotted rotors. Actually, I bought them regular, and I put in the slot myself. And the two front rotors, the two inner bearings, the two outer bearings, and the two seals ended up costing about a little less than $100. And there we go. Put in the nut, and then we'll put in the cotter pin afterwards. Thanks for watching the video.